So I had the pleasure of growing up in a family-run construction business. And that comes with its own privileges, like sweeping the floors, scrubbing the toilets, and sorting those miscellaneous everything boxes that would come back from job sites, because throwing anything out that could be salvaged, cleaned, or reused was against the religion we were brought up in. Now, I was too young to actually remember when this unique form of education began, but I'll tell you, what brings me here today is how it's evolved, and that's what connects us. Traditionally, construction has been very different. You got into construction because you were no good in school. You like to do work with your hands. Or like me, it was in my DNA before it was even a thought. Now the framework of construction has marginally shifted. We went from, I'm just a dumb construction worker, to micro shifts along the way. Now, at least today, we're talking about how construction is recognized as a professional industry. I'm a professional construction worker. And while the transition is tough, the reality is real. You see, before that framework shift, the only way to sort of make it in the industry was to get that nice, cushy office job. And we all know that exists in the land of rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. But the transition is a tough part. See, the transition of life is tough. Transition from the single life to that of a committed relationship. The transition from working sites to becoming a leader is no different. Yet what is challenging is the framework. See, our brains have sort of been preconditioned to do things the way that's always been done. And that's where it gets challenging, right? Historically, construction, you had to be tough. You hear words like, suck it up, buttercup. Like, you gotta keep going. You gotta be a man out there. And while we've made great inroads with gender diversity, the way we lead ourselves hasn't quite evolved. So how do we do it differently? How do we lead with a people-centric approach? How do we demonstrate, do we actually care about the people doing the work and wholeheartedly show up for them? How do we make a difference? How do we break traditional patterns of the way it's always been done? And now there's a boatload of people out there saying, Jonathan, who cares? Why do I care? It doesn't matter. People don't care anyways, except that they do. And I know that I care because I choose to show up differently. And get that. See, you don't have to do anything. And that's a choice too. Now I choose to consciously make the decision to show up better, show up differently, show up as a better father, husband, worker, son, brother. Because that's what matters to me. Because that's a legacy I want to leave behind. Because at the end of life, that's what's going to matter. And so how do we do this? We talk about connection, which is really ironic, right? Because connection and construction doesn't typically go together. You know, it's like oil and water. We hear widgets, outputs, profits, build things, and then maybe I'll connect. But ask yourself this: how do things change when you lead with connection? And see, this hit me in real time, where it matters most. At home. Now picture this. Here I am at the island counter, chopping vegetables, preparing dinner. And on the other side of the island, a little boy about this tall. He must have been 7 years old at this time. And he said to me, looks up and starts, Dad, sometimes I feel like we're not connected. Whew, that one hit me hard. I'm looking at him, and I have so many things going on in my head. I'm just like, you know what? Right now, I don't care. I'm not interested. On and on and on. The shoulds, the coulds, the things of the day that could have been done. And yet, it would have been really easy for me to armor up and dismiss that and say, what are you talking about? And validate all the reasons that we are connected, which is no different than what I experienced sitting in meetings. It's like, you didn't do this, and then you armor up. And instead, the thing that shifted next was magical. See, the next thing that came out of my mouth shifted the entire conversation. 3 words. Tell me more. And so I looked at him and said, Christian, sounds like you're going through a lot. Tell me more. What's really going on? And so here I am thinking, that's it, man. Like, I've connected with him. It's going to be great. He thinks that I'm there for him, and we can move on. It didn't occur that way. See, what happened next was he challenged me even more. And this is where it really got. He said to me, you know what, Dad? Sometimes I feel like you're not even part of this family. Whew. I had this 8-inch knife in my hand, and everything in me sort of clenched. The blood boiled. My veins tensed up. Because I was sitting there going, the heck are you talking about, kid? What are you talking about right now? And so what happened next was, I put the knife down, I walked to the other side of the counter, I put my hand on the shoulder and said, sounds like you're going through a lot right now. Tell me what's really going on. This doesn't ever get easier to tell. You think that you can't fabricate this stuff. You don't make this stuff up. But what happens next is, now I'm sitting on the floor with him, sort of cross-legged, right? Sitting there like this, looking at him, face to face, and I'm talking to him. And I said, tell me what's really going on. Right away, you've all these episodes. I'm not going to tell you what's going on because you're going to give me all these ideas and all these thoughts on how to solve the problem. I don't want to solve the problem right now. Well, was he right? See, it's interesting. He's calling out on your stuff. I looked at him and said, I love you. I care about you. This is a safe space, and I promise you, what you say here, I'm not going to react. He says, okay, I'll tell you. And the next thing is, he says, you know what, Dad? Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough. Man, is it the hardest thing to hear as a parent, as a human being, as anybody. And right away, he was right. I armored up and said, what does that even mean? Like, you're 7 years old. How do you even, what is that, right? The chatter in my brain went like this, and it was going on and on and on. And he said, see, I told you. You're going to solve my problems? And I said, you're right, thank you. I'm not here to solve your problems. I gave him a hug, and I said, I love you. What do we do next? You see, here's the thing. I was asking for his permission. I wasn't vaulting in ideas. How can I help you? What do we do next? He knew what he wanted. Actually, when he said, why don't we talk before bed? Sure. And he came back to me. And I'll tell you something. He re-engaged in that conversation at bedtime. And what I discovered, as I continued to ask questions and continued to say to him, tell me more about that. What I discovered, I would have never known. You see, don't forget, I'm coming here from, Dad, we're not connected, you're not part of this family, to the underlying issue. He was getting bullied at school, and he didn't know how to deal with it. And that's tough. That's tough to hear. This is a young boy who's never gone through this. And how many times does this happen? Yet, we hear things and we try to solve problems without even connecting with folks. And I'll tell you what I learned out of all that. There's always something else going on. And the behavior is an expression of the problem. You see, we think we know what's going on until we start to connect, until we start to ask questions. And when we do, a world opens up. So if I can leave you with one thought for today, stay curious, ask questions, because there's always something more going on. I learned that, how I learned that, and it shifted everything. It shifted everything in my world with 3 words: tell me more. Dig for the gold. Dig for what's not being said. Thank you.